Good day, Britain. This is Zesty Beans with the morning update. Unfortunately, the king, Erebus the Underworld Monarch, has died. Destroyed in battle, he will be laid to rest in the graveyard while his successor, Eidos, ascends to the... and he's out of the graveyard. Right, that's what they do. Alright, in lighter news, we're banning YouTube. Good afternoon, jank enthusiasts. I'm MBT, and this is 10-Minute Testing. Yeah, on a Monday. I'm switching things up now that I've been shadow banned by YouTube for having a fat ass and talking about children's card games. And I hope you've been scanning your IDs, citizens. Anyway, my pain is your gain, because it means now you'll have enough time to put this together before locals at the end of the week. Presenting Domain Monarch.
Holy crap, you're
The Monarch! So, you've heard of the mighty Monarch, then?
No.
So here's the list. While certainly inspired by Peeps and Lithium, there's some Lithiumian ratios I've avoided and some Peepsian trap cards that'll be staying in bulk. As always, I'll give you a background about the archetype, a little bit of a discussion about what I hope the deck can do, and of course, the card by card. But first, this video is sponsored by Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck. Despite what some Yu-Gi-Tubers who shall not be named would have you believe, the TCG is alive and well. And if you're looking to start your journey into paper, there's no better place to begin than Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck. With up-to-the-minute reporting on every major tournament worldwide, searchable and interactable pie charts and deck lists, and all the bells and whistles you've come to expect from one of the best draft and collection management sites on the net, Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck is the place to be. Check it out today at www.ygoprodeck.com. Now back to the video. With that, let's mess with Monarch. Monarch is a bifurcated archetype of squires, tribute fodder with 800 attack and 1000 defense, and big ol' beefy bastards with stats of 2800 or 2400 attack and 1000 defense. This incredibly frustrating way to design an archetype means that monarchs aren't just cards with monarch in their name, sometimes they're a predaplant, or a fish with a large brain, or a white. Anyway, these monsters harken back to an older, simpler time, back when the normal summon mattered, when the extra deck was just a place where you put the Blue Eyes Ultimate you couldn't summon, and when the Cracker Barrel logo still had the cracker. Normal summoning Mobius, then Ryza, then Caius remained some of the best Yu-Gi-Oh! You could play all throughout the aughts. Unfortunately, like most monarchs, these rulers were cut down to size, and now peasantry dictates the top decks. Did you know K9 is playing a sub-archetype? How impure! Well, the thing about monarchs is they have a nasty habit of showing back up. The sun never sets on the tribute summon, as it were, and these monsters have cast a long enough shadow on the game they've received wave after wave of legacy support, from 2016's Erebus, Aether, and Friends to 2023's whatever the hell this is. Konami seems dedicated to making sure we follow our leaders. But thanks to the new support in Duelist's Advance, they've made a pretty strong argument against democracy. From a squire that does it all, to a good Aether target, to a spell that finally searches the half of the deck that you're missing, this stuff's really powerful. Now, before we get into the card by card, I should mention this is just one way to play the strategy. Historically, despite the half-dozen Monarch cards that require an empty extra, Duelists have just jammed an extra deck in there anyway for playmakers. You could play extra deck Monarch with the K9 cards, for instance, racking up incidental synergy from the deck's 5s, but let's be real. You're probably broke, or else you wouldn't be begging for the king's favor. Let the petty bourgeois quibble over K9 splashes. We're going to be normal summoning. So with that, let's get into the card by card. First up, the Narcs. 3 copies of Aether the Heavenly Monarch, 2 copies of Erebus the Underworld Monarch, and 3 copies of Eidos the Underworld Monarch. Yes, that's right, Eidos has finally achieved Unk status with this card. If normal or specialed, you can add a Monarch spell trap or a monster with 2800 attack and 1000 defense from your deck or graveyard to your hand. You can also declare an attribute to make a face-up monster in the field become that attribute, and if you tribute summon a monster with 2400 or more attack and 1000 defense while this card is in your graveyard, you can add this card to your hand or special summon it. We are playing a Majesty's Fiend because we hate Yu-Gi-Oh! And a Caius for reasons that'll become clear later. Then on to our squires. You've got 3 copies of Tessera, the Primal Squire. You can reveal a Monarch spell trap in your hand, special summon this card from your hand. During your main phase, you can immediately, after this effect resolves, perform a tribute summon, and if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can special summon a monster with 800 attack and 1000 defense from your deck, and you can special summon from the extra deck for the rest of the turn. After that is Adia, the Heavenly Squire, usually the summon off of Tessera. If this card is normal or special, you can special a monster with 800 attack and 1000 defense from your deck in defense position, except for Adia, and you can special summon from the extra deck for the rest of the turn. If sent to the graveyard, you can target a banished Monarch spell trap and add it to your hand. This effect is actually really relevant, because a significant amount of the time, you are going to be Droll and Lockbirded, which makes it very difficult to find one of your floodgates that wins the game immediately, unless you're able to bin a couple of cards, banish one of them with the Prime Monarch, and then add that banished card back back to your hand with this card. 2 copies of Dose. If normally special, during your main phase, you contribute summon a monster in addition to your normal summoner set, and you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target a monster with 800 attack and 1000 defense in your graveyard, except itself special summoned in defense position, and you can't special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of the turn. For spells, we've got 3 copies of the Monarch's Revolt. New spell PogChamp, new spell PogChamp. Discard a card, reveal 3 monsters from your deck with 2400 or more attack and defense, or 800 attack and 1000 defense. Your opponent chooses one of them to add to your hand and send the rest to the graveyard. Also, for the rest of the turn after this card resolves, you can't special summon from the extra deck. You can banish this card from your graveyard to special summon a monster with 800 attack and 1000 defense from your hand. This card fixes everything. Monarch is frustrating for a number of reasons, but the biggest reason it's frustrating is you had to draw both a Monarch and a Squire in order to do much of anything. Even the spells, like Tenacity, occasionally require you to reveal a Monarch in your hand in order to prove you have plays before you get searching. This card gets you either the Squires if you need tribute material, or the big guys if you need those. Importantly, it can also banish from the graveyard to special monster with 800 attack and 1000 defense, meaning though Tessera has a built-in special summon, Adia and Eidos don't. So you can get them onto the field without wasting your normal summon, meaning you get to retain your normal, your bonus normal off of Eidos, and your bonus normal off of Tessera. Importantly, this card reveals 3 and then adds 1, which means you also have a little bit of agency in terms of what you send to the graveyard. You can guarantee by playing a 2-of that you always send one of these cards as well, making it a souped-up version of Foolish Burial. If you need a card added, Adia is fantastic. If you need to summon from deck, Tessera is fantastic. But a lot of the time, you're going to be sending Eidos, which, if it goes to the graveyard, means that when you finally perform your tribute summon, you can special summon this card out and proc its effect because it's not negated. After that, we've got the rest of the spell traps: Pantheism of the Monarchs, Tenacity of the Monarchs, Foolish Burial, Called by the Grave, Stormforth, Return, and Domain of the Monarchs, followed by the Monarch's Master Plan. So this card allows you to send a Monarch spell trap from your deck to the graveyard, except for this, and if banished, allows you to target a face-up monster your opponent controls, add a monster with the same attribute with 24,000. Then you can normal summon one of the old first-wave Monarchs. This is pretty important for the strategy. A lot of what it plays with is face-up on the field, because the requirements of the deck are so stringent, you can't really afford to play a lot of non-engine or hand traps. So you need some sort of layered interaction on your opponent's turn, otherwise they could just Raigeki Featherstorm you to the X2 bracket. This is a mechanism by which if your opponent puts a Dark onto the field, you can target it, add a Caius, then perform a tribute summon of Caius. Now you don't have to perform a tribute summon using your monsters, so if you've also got a Stormforth, you can eat 2 of their cards in one go. This is why we're on the Caius. It's a little clunky, but I think it's still quite good. Importantly, this effect of Eidos that modulates attributes means that you can use this a little more offensively, even against decks that aren't dark, but because it's not a quick, for some ungodly reason, it means that Caius isn't always going to be online. Finally, we've got the Monarch's Erupt. You don't really have to be playing 3 of this anymore. It's not like the Pantheism days where the spell traps are only searchable off of that card. Eidos ensures that you get what you need, and sending it off of something like an Erebus effect just to banish with the Prime Monarch, then add back with Adia is also quite good, since you now have the opportunity to play in different orders. Previously, you would have to spend your Adia for an early tribute, and it would be hard to retain it on the field. In the side, we've got Evenly Matched, a Winged Dragon of Ra, Sphere Mode, Solemn Judgment, Triple Tactics, Talents, a Harpy Feather Duster, and 3 Artifact Lancia. So with that, let's check out some games. Our first match is up against Mitsurugi Ryziel, and a pretty good hand from us. The infinite impermanence in our opponent's hand means that either they're going to be able to interrupt our play, or more likely, negate the effect of one of our on-field floodgates, but not both, I doubt. We'll begin with the effect of Pantheism in order to pitch Prime, a good way to get that into the graveyard. We draw a Revolt and a Squire, which is insane. Afterwards, we're good to go for a Tenacity. We will grab the last card we're missing, sending a Master Plan for the effect of Revolt. Then we'll activate the effect of Tessera. Tessera to our side of the field, we'll activate Domain, and then we'll activate the effect of the Tessera. That's going to get impermed, which means we lose 1 of our normal summons, but we still have a couple remaining. We get to go for Eidos, and the effect of Eidos in graveyard we milled off of our copy of Revolt, and then we get to go for the Tessera effect in order to summon out Adia. Adia here is going to summon Eidos, and we have another tribute as well. We can go for Erebus here, pitching this Monarch's Erupt, then Prime banishing the Monarch's Erupt, which means that when we perform our tribute summon, we can trigger the effect of Adia and the effect of Erebus in sequence to add back the Erupt and shuffle a card from our opponent's hand back into the deck. We're going to go ahead and grab that Erupt, set 2, and pass back to our opponent. They'll draw for turn, and they'll begin with a copy of Pot of Prosperity, finding off the top. Okay, they're going to take the Bonfire. From here, I'm a little concerned because the Bonfire means they can get X'd and contest one of our 2 floodgates, either the Domain or the Monarch's Erupt, so we have to be really careful with when we activate Erupt. They're going to go for the Mitsurugi line here for the Ami no Habakiri. They're going to send this copy of Saji, trigger the effect of the Saji for a ritual, then fire off the ritual from hand. They'll go from hand for a copy of Ami no Habakiri no Mitsurugi, and then afterwards, they'll be able to cycle back. We'll go for Prime here in order to banish it. We'll activate Master Plan, targeting the Habakiri into Caius, so we can use the Caius effect to get this off the field. They'll chain Prayers, and they get another Habakiri here, but in chaining Prayers, they've also put themselves in a position where their Habakiri grabs Ame, which means they are cut off from Ame because the Mitsurugi ritual can only get from deck from this position. No big deal, we would have just had to flip the Monarch's Erupt, but it puts it in a position where they can out either the Monarch's Erupt or the Domain, depending on how they want to wield the X. Instead, we get to use Monarch's Erupt as a kind of battle trick to negate the effects of the on-field Habakiris. They're going to use the X for the Veilon. We will chain the Stormforth that's targeted, and then they'll pass back to us with nothing to do. Well, thankfully, we didn't have to go for the Majesty's Fiend ever, which means we can still play a little bit. We'll do the effect of Tenacity, and then afterwards we can go Eidos, bring back this copy of Tessera. We'll trigger the effect of the Erebus, pitching this Pantheism, grabbing it back, then activating Revolt, pitching the Erebus in order to send a couple of cards before we tribute summon an Aether. Aether here, Tessera 2, Eidos 3. We will go ahead and grab him back to the hand, and then special out an Aedea, use the effect of the Aether in order to summon another copy of Erebus. We'll go battle and clean up the board, and from this position, it should be all but impossible for our opponent to get back into the game. We'll pass back to them, add back the Erebus, and they will draw for turn. It's a Star Ryziel. They'll activate Prayers, use the effect of Prayers to take 800 and bring back this copy of Ame, normal summon a star, go to the battle phase, walk into the Eidos, and then direct, taking 1,000. That puts the necessary Ryziels in grave for cross. They're going to try and draw out of this, and unfortunately, all they get is an Infip, just a little too late. We'll activate the effect of the Erebus in graveyard, pitching this Domain, and then afterwards we can normal summon a copy of Aether, trigger the effect of the Aedea, and just get off to the races. One Imperm isn't going to be sufficient. We'll go to the battle phase, 24, 28, 28. They reveal the Imperm and scoop them up. So that's how the deck performs on the play, but what does it do on the draw? Well, for game 2, our opponent's playing Draco Tail, and we have no hand craps. Of course we don't. We're not playing any. Our opponent's going to begin with a copy of Lucius. They'll activate Lucius's effect in order to grab an Urgula, and I'm like, okay, if I'm not already in the hand in that case. They'll go Arthalion into the effect of the Urgula, which allows them to set a copy of Rahu Draco Tail, and guess what? They are not yet locked. So Spirit with Eyes of Blue, seals, and then the Rahu Draco Tail for a copy of Gulamel. Gulamel, of course, is a very powerful card, but the important part of this is that Pawn gets to trigger, getting a Flame, as well as a Ketu Draco Tail. The Urgula will activate here in order to cycle that back, and then they'll use Ketu in order to grab a Labubu. They're going to set a copy of Horn. I expect it's Horn, because otherwise they would have set it. We'll go for Revolt to try and bait out the Flame, but they hold it. A little patient, which means that we are going to have to play really weird for the rest of the turn. We'll go Aedea for Aedeos effect, and then we'll use our extra normal on this Erebus. We'll activate the effect of the Erebus and the effect of the Aedeos. They'll activate the effect of 5 mana and the effect of Seals, which enables them to go to Dark Dragoon and get rid of our Erebus. We are going to shuffle the Dragoon, and then on a new chain, we can activate the Aedeos, but unfortunately, it's the same chain as the Labubu, which means they can summon it and negate our monster, setting a Ketu in the process. Oh, goodness. Okay. Things aren't looking great, but they're also not looking bad. Let's use Eidos in order to bring back Aedea, then we'll use Prime in order to banish the Monarch's Master Plan. That's going to be met with Horn and Gulamel to get material off our side of the field, but no big deal. Because we banished Master Plan, we can now contest their last meaningful point of interaction by targeting their Dark Monster. Down comes Caius, targeting the back row, and suddenly their board is totally picked apart. From here, all I have to do is activate Pantheism, and we have access to Stormforth, which eats the remainder of their board. Suddenly, we are in this game, and they scoop with the understanding that we are about to clock them. That last one may have seemed a little premature, but it's so funny that it actually was over. Monarch is one of those decks where if you give it an inch, they will take an OTK. Anyway, it's time for game 3, and you know what that means, a best of 3 versus meta. Our opponent's on Yummy, Cupsy, Wupsy, and we are going first, so enjoy this. We're going to begin with a copy of Aedea. That's going to summon from our deck a copy of Tessera. We're going to activate the effect of the Tessera in hand to summon it, and we're just trying to get into a position where the Aedea can remain on field so we can use it a little more beneficially later. We're going to go for the effect of the Tessera and the effect of the Aether. That's going to allow us to get both an Eidos and Unk Eidos. We'll trigger both of those effects, using Eidos' effect to grab a copy of Erupt, and then Pantheism's effect in order to grab a copy of Revolt. We can pitch that Erupt for Revolt in order to grab ourselves a copy of Erebus, then Prime Monarch to banish the Erupt, so that when we tribute this copy of Aedea, we can add that Erupt back. We're going to do that and set it passing back to our opponent with a loaded graveyard, including Master Plan. We will add the Aedeos back to hand. They will draw for turn. That's a pretty good one. We'll go Monarch's Erupt with 2 monsters they have to out. They're going to go Hornet Drones. That's a dark, so we're going to go for the Master Plan line here. Now, unfortunately, my opponent doesn't have a lot of fantastic mechanisms by which to out the Monarch's Erupt. They did spike the Purge, which prevents the banish, but they really need a field spell in order to use this as removal. They'll show me how close it was and then scoop it up. So it's time for game 2, and oh no! Well, let's see if we can pick apart a full obedience schooled end board. Down comes the aforementioned card into a Cupsy, a Lollipo, and a Cookie. From here, they're going to make a Yummy Snatchy, activate the effect in order to grab Mignon, then they'll make a copy of Cupsy Way. That's going to trigger, getting them 2 cards. Afterwards, they'll make another Snatchy into a Cupsy, trigger the effect of the Cupsy in order to grab a Yummy Surprise. They can use the effect of Mignon to bring back the Lolly into a Lollipo Yummy Way, bringing back the Cupsy and the Snatchy as well. From here, we can start doing more generic plays, the Starham into Cupsy, into Snatchy, into Set 2 Pass. This is like a trillion points of interaction. Okay, well, we're going to begin with a copy of Master Plan. That's going to fetch out a Snatchy activation. They're going to go into Herald of the Arclight. So this doesn't prevent spell traps from going to the yard, but it's still quite frightening for us. We're going to go for the Tenacity into a Purge here. Oh no. We're going to normal summon this copy of Adia. Okay, all right, well, now that our normal's gone, let's just go next. So it's time for that all-important game 3, and oh my god, I'm feeling pretty good about this one. This hand looks quite good, and our opponent's drawn a Driver. Okay, unfortunately for us, they're going to begin with a copy of Perulia, a card for which we do not have an Elegant out. We're going to go for Return of the Monarchs into Tessera. We will give them a draw. They'll go for Perulia into a Valor off the top. A little scary, but hardly the end of the world because we do have Adia. We'll activate the effect of the Adia, summoning an Ados from our deck. We'll activate the Ados, and then we contribute it for Big Ados. They'll draw off Perulia, and we'll activate Return of the Monarch and Ados in sequence. They draw an Ash off the top, which they'll use to negate, and we will grab a copy of Pantheism. We'll go Monarchs Revolt into a Frame Gear Delta! Oh my god! Well, final action, we can use the Pantheism into a Purge! You've got to be kidding me! Actually, 5 hand craps and a 1-card Sharder! They're going to begin with a copy of Cookie Yummy into a Snatchy. That should be all she wrote. Snatchy for a copy of Mignon. Mignon target the Cookie, and then afterwards they can just go ahead and activate the Cookie effect in order to eat our Eidos. From here, they can go for Cupsy Yummy Way and grab a couple of cards. Then afterwards, go for a Snatchy, special a Cupsy, trigger the effect of the Cupsy in order to grab another copy of Surprise effect in order to bounce everything that might necessarily matter, and then Snatchy effect in order to tag out into a Lollipo Yummy Way. From here, they'll activate the effect of the Lollipo in order to bring back a Cookie and a Yummy into a Lollipo, into shuffling back the last card that had any application. Am I just dead here? I am! Oh my god, surprise lethal! How frustrating. Well, that's just the way it goes. So we're back with the deck, and better than expected. Let's do the pros and cons. First, the pros. 1, I can't believe how good these new cards are, man. Eidos is the first good Aether summon since Celaglare, but he's also an amazing starter. He's material, he searches more names, he searches floodgates, a Tessera ensures you get the Adia ad, which plays around Ash and Droll, and Majesty's Fiend is legal. 2, it's shocking, since you're going to spend the first turn kind of staring at your opponent, but this deck's pretty good at playing into established setups. Each card interacts so pleasantly, even if removed, it's really hard for opponents to pin down what you're doing without exact knowledge of your hand. And 3, the stupid little fucking Caius trick is really funny. Almost every deck has a target, and you haven't lived until you've banished a power 1 of in 2025. And the cons. 1, so first and foremost, hand traps. Droll and Lockbird eats you alive. You've got a particular problem against Perulia. Obviously, nonsense like Shifter and the Bestials are pretty good against your deck full of dudes that must stay in the graveyard no matter what. 2, this is going to sound stupid, but your own game plan kind of floodgates you. If you resolve Erupt or stick a Majesty's Fiend, you are cut off from follow-up, since the Squires won't trigger. It gets you into this weird game where you're just kind of waiting for an opponent not to draw an out over the course of 3 turns. And 3, the other top decks are insane. It actually doesn't matter if you can land a Spell Speed 1 Floodgate-like domain in the face of Draco Tail or Canine, who can start summoning from the extra deck from the word Go. Ryziel can mirror logic anybody on board outside of Majesties, and the Mitsurugi cards clear the lock without even going into the extra. Hell, you can break Domain with Izuna just by tribute summoning her. Overall, these cards are good, but in the same way that King Charles is good. Totally passable, I appreciate it's not something worse, but honestly, I just kind of prefer if they weren't there anymore. So that's that. Thanks so much for watching. These 10-minute testings are made possible by, and occasionally suggested by, my patrons, some of whom have paid a lot of money to be mentioned at the end of the episode. Here are them now. Elena Tincher, Allison Elliott, Ally, APK Pearly Tier 0, Brett Henry, Captive XC, Cool Name, Damon O'Neill, Dark Rebel XYZ, DJ Elefante, El Gravo, El Guacho Malas Opiniones, Emiliano De Verino, NB Adams, Fabrizio Petroli, Felix, Garrett Rand, Hergalicious, John Paradise, Night Mary, Legal Rights, Lucas Rosas, Luis Hernandez, Master Key 090, Matthew M. Derezzo, MBT Play Madolce, Mike Carlotti, N54 Lionheart, Nacho Gonzalez, Pombo, Project Mercury, Rants Are My Thing, Rohan Doge, Rose Lapine, Serpentax, Sly Ninja 43, Soul CLG, Troy says By Erasure is gay, Uznik, Yuki Kazami, and Zircon's son. Couldn't have done it without you.